FSExpo 2023 was definitely a blast, and I had a few days to spare in the Houston, Texas area before my long journey home. I decided that I'm going to treat myself to something special. And for an aviation enthusiast such as myself, nothing is more special than flying a real aircraft. I have had the pleasure of flying in real world the Cessna 150, the 152, the Piper 28, as well as the 172. So I really wanted to try something different this time. And when I looked for available flight tours in the Houston area, I got a number of results. But I've decided to pick Humphries Aviation for the very fact that they have a Bonanza. I had two objectives for this flight tour. One is to compare real-world flying to our experience in the flight simulator. And the second objective, well, just to have fun. I arrived at the FBO at Southwest Airport in Houston, and let me tell you, the experience began from the minute I arrived at the FBO. Everyone was actually very friendly. The airport manager came out to say hello, and of course I was greeted by Scott, the CEO of the company. Scott Humphries, the owner of the company, is actually a very nice guy. He's very kind with impeccable skill. And I asked him if it was okay to conduct a short interview with him, which he obviously agreed to. And here is what Scott had to say when he was asked about his beginning with aviation and how he's actually established the company.
Well, I got my pilot's license 31 years ago in 1992 when I was in college, and I've been flying pretty much ever since then. But about 5 years, well, I should say, I got my initial license in 1992 and then went and got my instrument rating, my commercial license, and my multi-engine license between then and now. And about 3 years ago, I started Humphries Aviation, which does a number of things. First, it gives sightseeing tours around Houston in my Beechcraft Bonanza airplane. And I also do some contract flying, some second-in-command flying for jets, and I ferry airplanes when folks need airplanes taken from one place to another. And I've been doing all that now for about 3 years. I've got about 2,300 hours at this point and working on my instructor rating.
Wow, that's great. That's great. Have you ever considered, being a commercial pilot for one of the airliners?
I have, and I think once my younger son leaves for college next year, I'm going to look more broadly at commercial pilot opportunities instead of just the one-off contract piloting that I have been doing.
Excellent, excellent. Well, obviously, Scott, there are a lot of companies that offer the same services as Humphries Aviation in the area. What do you think, in your opinion, the thing that makes Humphries Aviation stands out?
I think there's two things. Number one, a lot of the folks that you can hire to take you around, take you up in an airplane, are folks, young folks who are working on their instructor rating and are building hours. And so while they are perfectly capable of safely taking you around, they don't have 30 years of flying experience to be able to explain things to you and about the concepts of flying and the acts of flying while they're doing it. And I think that's an important aspect of it. Secondly, I think the equipment is important. The Bonanza is an amazing airplane, and you will not find in Houston or many places folks who give sightseeing tours in Bonanzas. It's a great airplane because you can have one person sit up in the co-pilot seat and take their turn flying if in a safe environment. And then there's a club seating cabin in the back where you can have 2, 3, 4 passengers right along, and it makes for a great social plane. You're not just up there squeezed in. It's a nice piece of equipment for the type of flying that I have been doing.
After the short interview was over, Scott took me to the briefing room for a brief on our flight plan. and what we're going to be doing during this flight tour around the Houston area. Let's take a look.
This is our route today. We'll take off here at Houston Southwest, and we'll basically do a clockwise loop around central and southern Houston. We come up here, we go over the Galleria, which is one of the country's biggest shopping areas, and we come along here along Interstate 10, past downtown, past some giant rail yards, and out to the San Jacinto Monument, which commemorates the battle that gave Texas its independence, and then down the Houston Ship Channel, past NASA and Kima, which is kind of a water recreation area, and then back here to Arcola, where we are now. This is Fore flight, which I'm sure you've seen.
Yes.
And I've got all the little points that I talk about on my typical tour here labeled. And you can see there's a lot of them up here on the central side, and there's less down here, which is why in the south I typically let the person sitting in the co-pilot seat take the controls and get the experience of flying the plane. And you'll see these blue lines. These are Houston's airspace here, these concentric circles. And it's like an upside down wedding cake. And so here in Arcola, we can go up to 2,500 feet without talking to air traffic control. Most of the first part of our flight will be in this part of the airspace where we can go up to 2,000 feet without talking to air traffic control. We'll ask permission to do a loop around downtown up here, which requires us to go into an area where we do have to get permission from air traffic control. Sometimes they give it to us, sometimes they don't if it's busy. But we can still get pretty close to downtown even if they don't do that. This orange circle here is a reminder that the Houston Astros play right there, and when they are actually playing, that's a no-fly zone over the stadium, and over all stadiums now after for about the last 20 years. And that's basically what I would use to navigate, not just for this tour, but for point-to-point trips as well. Oil is critical to the engine running, and so the entire walk around is basically, I do a counterclockwise loop around the plane, but I always start here with the engine. And when I pop the cowling here, I'm looking for anything that looks out of place, and I've spent a lot of time looking at this, and I know what all the pieces are. But the critical part for this morning is to check the oil. And we've got 9 quarts of oil, which is exactly what I would expect, and it's perfect. So we won't be needing to add any oil there. And then once I'm satisfied that this all looks like it should, there's nothing dripping from where it shouldn't, we close that up. Make sure this is locked down tight. And then we proceed counterclockwise around the plane. And just make sure that the tires look good, that a bird has not made a nest in your wheel well. Also very important, we visually confirm how much gas is in the plane, because unlike in flight simulator land, when you run out of gas, it's a real problem. And sadly, too many private pilots, too many crashes are the result of people just literally running the tanks dry. So I've had the tanks filled up this morning, so we've got 37 gallons of gas in each tank, enough to keep us up there for about 5 or 6 hours if we needed it. The pitot tube here, we make sure that this is clear. This device, when the ram air comes in here, that pushes up against a diaphragm, which gives us our airspeed reading. It's our stall warning horn. If the plane is at an angle of attack where we're approaching a stall, this will make a horn sound and alert us that if we're not intentionally trying to do it, that it's a condition we need to correct. Wing tacks, these are not standard on the Bonanza, but we had them put on. They allow almost 200 pounds more weight carried in the plane, and they also carry another 20 gallons each. Make sure the ailerons move correctly with the yokes, and if they move freely, and that all the connections there are good. These are the flaps. They do not move from outside. They're electrically actuated from inside, but we just make sure those are firm. We continue our walk around here. These are the static vents, which which help us. The air coming in here drives the altimeter and helps calculate the airspeed for the airspeed indicator. There's one here, there's one on the other side, and there's one underneath the plane as well. Make sure the vertical stabilizer moves properly. We don't push on this, but we make sure it's connected and that the rods are where they should be. Looking good. This is obviously our rudder. Helps us turn in flight. All right, that brings us to the inside. I think you'll be sitting up in the co-pilot seat with me, but this is what the cabin looks like. And I've taken out the fourth seat just because people find it more spacious with 3 seats in there. Carry some extra headsets and oil in the back in case we're traveling. The table comes out, and that's the rear cabin. And it's the same on this wing. 3 flaps set. Make sure that the aileron moves properly. And visually confirm the gas. The other thing that I've already done, and I'm happy to do if you want to see it, is I sump the gas. You want me to?
That's okay.
Okay.
That's okay.
Yeah. So typically I drain about an inch of gas out to make sure that there was no sediment in the bottom of the gas.
Right.
Take a look at this side of the engine. Again, here this time there's nothing to do on this side. We're just checking to make sure that all the wires are connected and that nothing looks out of place, nothing's leaking. That all looks good. All right, we're good to fly. We can wait on the seat belts for now. The parking brake is set. Avionics master's off. Landing gear handle is down. Cow flaps are up. Cow flaps are open. Switches are all off. Fuel selector valve will burn off the left tank. Battery and all switches are coming on. Test the warning lights. Turn on the beacon. All right, now we'll close the door. It's going to pop there and lock there. Okay. All right. So that's on. The mixture's full rich. The propeller is full forward. The valve's full open. We prime the engine for a few seconds. There we go. That's off. And clear.
It was rather a pleasant surprise to sit in the cockpit and feel right at home. Everything looked exactly as it should, based on my experience with the black square Bonanza in Microsoft Flight Simulator. All the gauges, the switches, the Garmin device, everything looked exactly the same. Of course, the cockpit in the flight simulator is not to scale, and so in a flight simulator you'd see the entire cockpit just by looking at your monitor, whereas in real life you had to scan through to the left, to the right, and the bottom to find certain instruments. But really, the experience in this Bonanza was attestation to the accuracy of what flight simulation can give us flight simmers. I was quite impressed. Taking off really rushed the blood through my veins, and I felt on top of the world. It was a very beautiful experience flying a real Bonanza, and Houston is actually very beautiful from top. During the flight, Scott has showed me how to stall the aircraft, perform 45-degree steep turns, as well as performing side slips. It was very educational and extremely fun, and this is exactly where I was blown away of how different flying a real aircraft is from flying in a flight simulator. When I took controls, I really got a feel for how it feels to battle the wind. You really had to apply back pressure to keep the aircraft level, and those steep turns are really fun to perform in real life, as opposed to a flight simulator, where you can't really feel any of the forces acting on the aircraft. And this confirms what I've been telling you guys all along. All good things come to an end, and it was time for us to land back at Houston Southwest Airport, runway 09er. I really had fun. I really enjoyed being up in the air. It was really the ultimate experience, and Scott made it worthwhile. Nice landing.
No, I'm glad you had fun.
Absolutely. Enjoyed it very much.
And that's a wrap.
Scott, thank you very much for the really immersive experience. It's been very educational. I've had a lot of fun. Definitely would recommend it and would do it again. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with me or say to the Q8Pilot Channel followers?
No, it was a really fun flight, and you did a great job at the controls. I was envious. Not many first-timers, or not just first-timers, but folks who have little experience in airplanes in the sky are that smooth at the controls. It was very well done.
Oh, thank you very much. Appreciate that.
I enjoyed our flight.
All right, thank you very much. This brings us to the conclusion of this video. I hope that you've enjoyed my real-world flying experience over Houston, Texas. Until next time, please take care of yourselves and each other, and I will see you all very soon. Thanks for watching, and bye-bye for now.